When Captain Ibrahim Traore declared, "Perhaps everything we've done has surprised you, hasn't it? More changes might still surprise you." He is not merely making a statement. He was issuing a warning to those who doubted his leadership and visions for Burkina Faso. His words were a declaration of unstoppable change, a commitment to reshape his nation's future through action, not rhetoric. Now, just 5 weeks into 2025, Traore has already achieved what many African leaders failed to accomplish in an entire year. His rapid and decisive actions have unsettled corrupt African elites who have long thrived in inaction and dependency. Even Western powers, especially those who recently cut aid to Burkina Faso, are now watching in disbelief as the country moves bound towards full self-sufficient, proving that it can thrive without relying on foreign assistance. If you've been following social media, you may have seen a viral video circulating online. This is not ordinary video. It's a footage of an enormous convoy transporting brand new road construction farming equipments worth millions of dollars into Burkina Faso. What makes this moment even more remarkable is that this revelation did not come from government officials or state media. Instead, a Ghanaian traveler filmed the convoy as it entered Burkina Faso from Ghana, capturing what many African leaders only dream of but never achieved: development in action. While some leaders in Africa organize lavish ceremonies and press conferences to announce so-called development projects that never materialized, Traore has taken a different approach. Let the work speak for itself. Not unnecessary grandstanding, not empty words, just results. This is the true definition of leadership. The most shocking part of this development is how Burkina Faso's funding these projects. Unlike other African nations where leaders beg for foreign aid while mismanaging domestic resources, Burkina Faso is financing its infrastructure projects without foreign loans or external assistance. This stands in stark contrast in the situation of other African nations where leaders have spent the first weeks of 2025 hopping from one international summit to another, seeking more aid, signing more loan agreements, and making empty promises to their people. Now, with the newly elected US President Donald Trump cutting aid to Africa, these leaders are in a state of confusion because the funds they have relied on for decades, funds that often disappear into their private bank accounts, are no longer guaranteed. But Burkina Faso is different. Traore has ensured that the government remains financially independent, capable of funding its projects without waiting for handouts from former colonial powers. These massive shipments of machinery are not for display. They serve a strategic purpose. The Burkinabe government has committed to constructing major highways and transportation networks that will connect the nation's biggest cities. This is part of a wider economic strategy to ensure that goods, people, services can move efficiently across the country. But the vision doesn't stop from Burkina Faso's borders. The country is actively working with its allies in the Alliance of Sahel States, AES, Mali, and Niger, on a transformative regional and infrastructure projects. One of the most ambitious plans in the pipeline is the construction of an insect highway which connects Yami, Tera, Dori, Kea, Ouagadougou, Bobo Dioulasso, Orodora, Sokaso, Boguni, Bamako. This highway will serve as a vital economic artery, linking the three countries, allowing for smoother trade, better connectivity, and greater economic cooperation. One of the most remarkable aspects of Burkina Faso's new economic model is that all these projects are being funded internally. The country has completely rejected the debt trap that is inside many African nations for decades. Just last year, in 2024, Burkinabe citizens contributed over 175 billion CFF francs to the war effort, a clear sign of national unity and self-reliance. This amount was raised independently without relying on foreign loans. And with the recent establishment of a gold refinery, Burkina Faso is now in an even stronger financial position. The country is no longer has to export raw gold only to buy back into inflated prices. Instead, it can process and sell gold directly, keeping process within the country and using them to finance major national projects. Now, With a stable financial foundation, Burkina Faso can purchase any equipment, fund any infrastructure project, and invest in its own future without outside interference. What Burkina Faso is doing in the Ibrahim Traore is not just an internal transformation, it's a wake-up call for all Africa. For decades, many African nations have been dependent on foreign aid, falling into a blessed cycles of based debt dependency while their leaders pocket funds meant for development. But Burkina Faso is breaking that cycle. No more begging for aid, no more wanting for loans, no more broken promises. Instead, Traore has shown that with the right leadership, a nation can achieve true independence, both politically and economically. This is why corrupt African leaders are panicking. They have spent years convincing their people that progress is impossible without foreign assistance. Now, Traore is proving them wrong, and this is why Western nations are uneasy. Their influence over Burkina Faso is diminishing. Their ability to control African economies through debt is weakening. A self-reliant Burkina Faso is a direct challenge to their geopolitical strategy in Africa. Ibrahim Traore is not just making history, he is rewriting Africa's future. By taking control of its resources, economy, and infrastructure, Burkina Faso is setting an example for the rest of Africa. The Alliance of Sahel States, AES, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger, is showing the continent that true sovereignty is possible with a strong military, independent economy, and ambitious development projects. Burkina Faso is proving that all African nations can rise without the projects. Speaking of foreign aid, everyone can remember, but when Captain Traore said that we have been receiving aid for 63 years, yet our country has not developed, cutting it off from us now will not kill us. Rather, it will motivate us to work and reform ourselves, carry a profound truth that many failed to grasp until recently. This statement became even more relevant when the newly elected US President Donald Trump made the bold decision to end the US foreign aid to African nations. The reactions from African leaders and citizens was immediate and intense. Many took to social media voicing outrage and frustration, accusing the US of abandoning them and labeling the move as unjust and damaging. However, what is missing from these complaints is a fundamental question. Why should Africa be in a position where the withdrawal of funds caused such panic? For decades, foreign aid has been presented as a solution to Africa's problems. However, rather than fostering economic independence and sustainable development, it has created a dangerous culture of dependency. Instead of being used effectively to uplift the people, much of this aid has been wasted, mismanaged, or outright stolen. African governments have long blamed their struggles on external factors, colonialism, economic exploitation by the West, and climate change. While these factors have certainly played a role in shaping Africa's history, they do not explain the ongoing failures of many African nations to build strong, independent economies. When financial assistance is given, instead of being used to develop a critical infrastructure, healthcare, or education systems, it is often misappropriated. And when citizens or international organizations demand transparency, African leaders react with hostility instead of accountability. The results of this mismanagement are glaring. In South Africa, state-owned enterprises like ESO Transnet have been hollowed out by the leading to power shortages and economic stagnation. Public funds meant for social services mysteriously vanished into the pockets of politicians and their allies. In Nigeria, billions in oil revenues, foreign aid, and loans disappear every year due to mismanagement and embezzlement. Infrastructure projects stall, healthcare remains inadequate, and unemployment skyrockets, while government officials live in obscene luxuries. In Kenya, the national debt has ballooned due to reckless borrowing, yet government officials continue to enrich themselves while citizens bear the burden of higher taxes and inflation. This is not a failure of foreign donors. It is a failure of African leadership. One of the biggest misconceptions about foreign aid is that it is free money given without conditions. However, aid is not a gift. It comes with expectations. The nation providing this assistance expect that the money will be used responsibly to uplift populations, improve governance, and foster economic stability. Yet, too often, African leaders treat foreign aid as an entitlement rather than an investment in their people. They accept billions in funding but reject any form of oversight. They insist on sovereignty when it comes to how they spend money but refuse to be held accountable when corruption is exposed. This creates a vicious cycle. 1. Corrupt governments receive aid with a little oversight. 2. The money is mismanaged, stolen, or used inefficiently. 3. Public projects remain unfinished or poor quality. 4. Citizens see no real improvement in their lives. 5. Governments demand more aid, blaming external factors for their failures. 6. Foreign donors continue providing aid for hyping at different results. This system does not help Africans grow. It keeps it dependent. When Donald Trump announced the end of U.S. foreign aid to African nations, many reacted with outrage. But instead of asking why Trump made this decision, many chose to blame for the consequences. The reality is the U.S. taxpayers have no obligation to fund corrupt governments. Aid is meant to help people, not to finance mismanagement and theft. If African governments were truly committed to development, they would not need continuous handouts. The anger directed at Trump should stay directed at the leaders who failed to make their nation self-sufficient. A responsible government would be seen withdrawal of aid and not as a crisis, but as an opportunity to stand on its own. This is precisely what Captain Ibrahim Traore of Bukina Faso understood when he declared the cutting aid would not kill his country, but would instead force it to work harder and reform itself. His leadership contrasts sharply with many African other politicians who, instead of fostering independence, cling to foreign aid as a permanent solution. While aid is intended to support development in many African nations, it has become a tool for corruption and exploitation. African leaders have perfected various methods to siphon foreign funds for personal enrichment. 1. Embezzlement. Aid money meant for healthcare, education, or infrastructure is funneled into private bank accounts. This facilitated by weak and lack of accountability to kickbacks and bribes. Contracts funded by foreign aids often require bribes, inflating costs and reducing qualities. Contractors cut corners to make up for the financial losses caused by corruption. 3. Overpriced and fake projects. Governments inflate the cost of projects to siphon off excess funds, or worse, create ghost projects that exist only on paper. 4. Perversion of development loans. Instead of funding productive sectors, loans are used for luxury purchases, mansions and cars and regional real estate. This is why many African countries remain poor despite receiving billions in over the years. The problem is not the lack of resources, it is bad governance. Not every African country misuses this aid, but for those that do, Trump's decision should serve as a wake-up call. A continent blessed with abundant natural resources, vast arable lands, and a young, energetic population should not be relying on foreign handouts. Instead of begging for aid, African leaders should focus on building strong institutions that prevent corruption and promote accountability, investing in local industries to create jobs and reduce reliance on imports, developing agricultural and manufacturing sectors to ensure food security and economic stability, empowering citizens through education and skills training, ensuring that they can contribute to national development, creating mechanisms for transparency such as public finance tracking system, so that every dollar spent can be accounted for. This is why Captain Ibrahim Traore's approach is so revolutionary. He established a platform where citizens can report corruption cases directly to him, something few African leaders would dare to implement. Why? Because they know exactly how deep their corruption runs. The end of US aid to African countries is not the catastrophe many claim to be. It's a taste. It challenges African governments to prove that they can survive without handouts. It forces them to confront the reality that true independence does not come from foreign aid, but from economic self-sufficiency and good governance. Until African leaders take responsibility for their countries, no amount of foreign aid will solve their problems. The real enemy is not Trump or any other Western leaders who decides to cut aid. It is the corrupt political class that has for decades chosen to enrich itself at the expense of its people. Africa does not need more aid. It needs accountability. It needs leadership. And most importantly, it needs a commitment to self-reliance. Only then will the continent break free from the cycle of dependency and take its rightful place as a global powerhouse. And this is why I insist that African leaders must take a serious, in-perspective look at governance and ask themselves a fundamental question. Why is Captain Ibrahim Traore celebrated across the continent while they struggle to gain respect from their own people? What is hating differently the millions across Africa admire, and why do the citizens not afford the same level of honor? The answer lies in his leadership style, rooted in action, problem solving, and a genuine commitment to the welfare of its people. Unlike many other African politicians who offer empty rhetoric while looting national wealth, Traore is implementing bold, practical reforms that directly improve the lives of Burkinabes. Last night, I conducted a analysis of Burkina Faso's political landscape to understand who Captain Ibrahim Traore truly is. Initially, I feared he might be another ideological revolutionary focused only on rhetoric without tangible solutions. I also worried that he might be just another leader who talks about colonization and imperialism without offering concrete steps towards self-sufficiency. I was wrong on both counts. Traore is not just a critic of Africa's post-colonial struggles. He is actively dismantling the structures of foreign dependency and implementing long-term transformative policies. One of the most striking aspects of Traore's leadership is his approach to economic sovereignty. Burkina Faso is one of the world's largest gold producers, yet for decades it lacked even a single gold refinery. This man, miners were exporting raw ore to European countries only for the country to buy back refined gold at a higher price. This cycle of exploitation was unacceptable to Traore. His solution: build a gold refinery in Burkina Faso. This move keeps wealth within the country instead of transferring it abroad, creates thousands of local jobs in mining and refining, increases government revenue from a valuable natural resource. Burkina Faso has long been a major tomato exporter. Yet, ironically, the country can't import tomato paste from foreign nations. This inefficiency did not sit well with Traore. His response: he commissioned the construction of a tomato processing plant. This ensures food security by producing more products locally, increase job opportunities for local farmers and workers, economic self-reliance, reducing unnecessary import costs. Unlike many African leaders who rely on foreign aid while ignoring local industries, Traore has launched an ambitious industrialization plan across various sectors. His administration is building a pharmaceutical production plant to manufacture essential medicines domestically, cashew nut processing factories to add value to one of Burkina Faso's major agricultural exports, a waste treatment factory to improve environmental management, a nuclear plant to diversify the country's energy supply, a shea butter and edible oil production complex, ensuring Burkina Faso fully capitalizes on its natural resources. All these projects are designed to reduce dependence on foreign imports, create local jobs, and drive economic prosperity. Instead of spending state money on luxury, Traore has prioritized healthcare for ordinary citizens. He has approved in its $80 million world-class hospital, but his real impact is seen in his day-to-day decisions. Rather than upgrading his official vehicles, he has been purchasing modern ambulances to reach rumored villages. He has expanded rural healthcare programs, ensuring that even the poor citizens receive medical attentions. Unlike traditional African governments that rely on bloated bureaucracies, Traore partners with the private sectors for national development. He introduced population holding, a policy that allow ordinary citizens to invest in national projects. For example, he sold percent of government's telecom company to the public, generating a 60 million since revenue. This money was reinvested into critical sectors like education, healthcare, and infrastructure. In a shocking move, Traore cut government ministers' salary while increasing teachers' wages, reduced public officials' access to luxury parks, mailed facts falsified no luxury cars or no excessive foreign trips, uses a second-time pickup truck while channeling public funds into national development. This stands in a stark contrast to many African leaders who travel in private jets while their citizens suffer. African politicians are notorious for suppressing dissent, but Traore shocked the world when he declared that when he defended his people's right to protest even against his own government. This demonstrates genuine accountability. He sees himself as a servant of the people, not their ruler. A commitment to democracy, unlike many African leaders who cling to power through oppression. Burkina Faso is currently fighting a war against Al-Qaeda-backed insurgents, a major reason for the coup that brought Traore to power. Under his leadership, thousands of young men and women have joined the army, inspired by his vision for national defense. Instead of relying on unreliable Western assistance, Traore has partnered with Russia to strengthen security. His strategic military leadership is a key factor in Burkina Faso's fight against terrorism. During the inauguration of Ghana's new president, John Mahama, 21 African heads of state were in attendance. Yet, when their names were called, the crowd was silent. But when Captain Ibrahim Traore was introduced, the entire stadium erupted in a wild applause. But why did millions of Ghanaians celebrated him? Because he works hard every day to solve structural problems. Because he stays in his country, prioritizing domestic progress. Because he doesn't waste taxpayer money on luxury. Because he is creating industries, jobs, and economic opportunities. The moment was a wake-up call for African leaders. Traore is proving that African nations do not need to beg for foreign aid to develop. Instead, they need courageous leadership, smart economic policies, a relentless commitment to serving the people. African leaders must decide, will they learn from Ibrahim Traore and embrace bold people from focused government, or will they continue with their business as usual, enriching themselves while their countries remain poor? The choice is theirs. But one thing is certain, Africa is waking up, and the people will no longer tolerate incompetence.